Check, check, check. All right, now that my intro music is over, let's get serious, shall we? All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out on a beautiful Wednesday morning here in Atlantic City. And welcome to Advanced Measuring. Did anybody sit through this on Tech Tuesday for Metro Chapter a couple Tuesdays ago? Oh, good. All the information's fresh then. At least this time I have 90 minutes to get through it instead of ripping through it in 60. That put a strain on. Anyway, NESPA asked me to put this up here. Stop by the booth, 2555, because they're freaking cool. Take some selfies, brag to your friends. There you go. Anyway, advanced measuring techniques for all pools. This is assuming you guys already know how to measure a pool, how to A/B, stuff like that. We're going to get into some of the nuances of measuring, like really stupid stuff where you're there for like 4 hours, but you gotta be, because nothing's the same from one side of the step to the other side of the step, or some nonsense like that. We will later get into modern measuring techniques, which will actually put an end to all of that, but that's to come. We're gonna start out with some quick basics. So just so you know, blah, 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 that's me. I work for Kadin Manufacturing, but I'm here not as their rep, I'm here for NESPA to talk about what I know. I owned and operated a service repair and renovation company for just over a decade. 8 years ago, I jumped ship to the manufacturing side. If I knew then what I know now, peeking behind the curtain from the manufacturing side, I would have been better at measuring. I would have been better at installing, because now I know the nuances. So now I'm able to share that with you guys that are still out in the field, haven't retired to the desk job, and hopefully we can come up with a few aha moments and some light bulbs going off here. Just make a note of how you can contact me. Whether you buy products from Kadin Manufacturing or not, that is not why I'm here. I'm here to share the information. If you have questions, you need some slides, you're out in the field, you're not sure what to do, you take a picture, you can text me, you can call me, you can email me. I will get back to you, to every one of you, all right? Everybody get your pictures in. And yes, that is an old photo. People always ask me, oh, when was that photo taken? 1980? Okay. My wife's a professional photographer. She knows how to make me look good. I appreciate that. Thank you, Faye. We're going to break this down into 3 major parts, and if we have time, we'll get to a bonus round for equating, figuring out volume, figuring out square footage, things like that, for resurfacing a pool, plaster, paint, that sort of thing. But we will probably be spending a lot of Q&A on the modern measuring techniques, so that part might get nixed. We'll see. If you're here for that, I can always send you the slides. So quick, easy quoting from your office. Why is my mouse up there? Anybody here use Google Earth Pro for quoting? Yeah, sadly that's only like 4. It should be all of you. So that's what we're about to get into. The days of driving. All right, who didn't get the memo about the ringer? Just the days of driving to a job just to do a quote for somebody who's kicking tires. They just filed their taxes. They know how much they're getting back now. Like, oh, maybe this year we do the liner. I don't know, let me get some quotes. You're going to drive an hour for that guy? No. All right, we can do away with that. Google Earth Pro, which is not the Google Earth that's on your phone, it's only on computers, unfortunately, maybe that'll change, is what we want to be using for a couple of reasons. But we're going to be getting into satellite measuring as opposed to wasting our time driving around for tire kicking. So Google Earth Pro, download it, it's free, it's super easy to use. There's only a couple functions on there that you're really going to need. Basically, you enter the address, boom, the house pops up. Right away, we can see, okay, pool, 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 pool. So as you're driving down that street, you should be thinking about that. Door hangers, yard signs, your van in that neighborhood on a regular basis, get it out there, all right? That's where we start. Now, this customer needs a quote for a liner. If I go to Google Earth on my phone and I punch in the address, I get one photo, the most recent one. Guess what? The cover's on. Great. Does it have liner over step? Is there a switch? Like, I don't know enough about that pool to give you a ballpark figure on a quote. I don't want to have to drive there, take the cover off to find out. With Google Earth Pro, we can use the history slider. Every picture that has ever been taken of that property, this is kind of freaky, kind of big brother, every picture is in that history slider right there. We can now go back through time and see, okay, there it is with the cover on. There it is with the cover off, but I got a lot of shadows. That's not really doing me much good. There it was before the pool was even built. Holy cow. Bang. There's the photo I want. Now I can get a length. I can get a width. I can get the width of those steps. I can do a pretty daggone accurate quote sitting in the air-conditioned splendor that is my office. Didn't have to get up and do anything. I could even do it if you know your pricing ahead of time, which you should all know your pricing before the season starts, not just what you're paying, but what you're going to be charging your homeowners for X, Y, and Z. You could do this on the phone. All right? If your pricing's that dialed in, you could do this on the phone. So we're looking at a free-form pool going, well, how do I quote that? What do I give to you guys? If I can't quote it myself, what do I give to my manufacturer to get a quote from? Most pools, it's going to be a length and a width. That's pretty obvious. The widest width of any step, which is usually the bottom step. Okay, pretty straightforward. What about freeforms, however? The length of a freeform is usually pretty easy, pretty straightforward. As we can see here, it's just, one shot to the other. I always round up to the nearest foot because we're doing this from space. Don't forget. So it's going to be a little off. Don't make the liner from this, but you can definitely do some quotes from this. So that's going to be my length. It's 38 feet. So I'm going to call that, I might call that 39 feet. I might even call it 40, depending on how I'm feeling that day. I'd rather quote high and then come in lower than the other way around. All right. It's easy to come down. It's hard to go up. So that's the length. And believe it or not, you can measure in feet. You can measure in. There's even something on there called smoots. Apparently that was a college prank once. It's about 5'6". This guy like Joe Schmoot. That was his college project. He measured a bridge and how tall he was. So I wouldn't recommend smoots. I'd stick with feet and inches, just, to be clear. How do we do the width now? What are most manufacturers looking for when it comes to the width of a free-form pool for liners or for covers? What is the smallest rectangle that this pool will fit inside of? That's the length and the width that they are looking for. People are like, well, what about all that extra square footage? What we're accounting for is all the extra perimeter material that happens on a free-form pool. It's a lot more than there is on a rectangle. All right, so there's checks and balances to this system. So as you'll see, my line went from the top edge of the pool, but I came down here past that edge to kind of line up with this tip over here because that would be the width of the smallest rectangle that pool will fit inside of. For a liner or a safety cover, that's what we're looking for. All right, for a safety cover, we're also looking at the deck around the pool. Hard to tell, is that pavers, is that cement? I'm going to say that's cement, okay? Could be pavers, but I'm thinking cement. I can see there's some stuff here I need to be aware of, but all this is happening in my office. I could actually be on the phone with them right now. What happens in 2026? Everybody's used to the speed of Amazon. I grab my phone, zip, 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 bang, done. A drone's going to deliver it tomorrow. We need to do that too. That's what everybody is accustomed to. And if we're falling behind, well, we're falling behind. Your competitors might be doing that. Why aren't you? All right. Make it easy, save time, save money, cut out the tire kickers, the people who are just curious. And when you're on the phone, you'll know, is this person serious? Do I need to invest more time? Do I need to go to the site and actually shake hands and, face to face? You're going to know that. That's not for me to tell you. When it comes to doing these sort of aerial space shot satellite quotes, again, most manufacturers are only looking for a couple of measurements. The worst thing that comes across our desk is a set of like 80 AB points for a quote. The heck did you go do that for? Come on. All right. It's just very, very basic. Most of the time, it's a length and a width. Sometimes we got to think a little outside the box and make that imaginary rectangle that pool's going to fit inside of. Again, here we're going just a little beyond. When we get into lazy L's is the one time we actually need to measure the perimeters. All right, for a quote. That's the only kind of exception to the rule. But generally, it's a length and a width overall. Does all that make sense? All right. Might be a good slide to take a picture of because it's a great little reference for when you're doing this. You don't need to go crazy with trying to get too many measurements just for a quote. Give me a chance to drink some water. All right. I'm sorry? through the info that was on there. You can text me, you can email me, you can call the office. I'm option number 2. But yeah, if anybody needs any slides, if the picture didn't come out well, just text me. I'll send it to you. It's all good. All right. Again, what we're looking to do here is weed out the tire kickers. Maybe we can convert those tire kickers to an actual lead, an actual sale, because we quoted them, Johnny on the spot. Maybe nobody else was doing that, and they're impressed by that. Every little thing that you can do to get your foot further in the door, this is something we want to jump on. All right, but I can't tell you how many years I wasted because we didn't have Google Earth Pro back in my day, and I'm driving to jobs to talk to this guy, and I'm doing quotes, and I got nothing. I just wasted. I'm paying my helper to go there with me to hold the stupid end of the measuring, the tape measure. So don't do that anymore. We got better stuff now. The future is happening now, and we're going to get to more of the future here momentarily. So that was just some basic, quick, more for the salespeople in the crowd. Now we get into some of the nitty-gritty. Again, I'm assuming you guys know how to measure pools, and you're here because you've gone to some wonky pools and been like, what the heck do I do now? Been there, done that, had to kind of make it up as I went along. But working for a manufacturer and seeing how the liners are designed and seeing how they're put together helped me to answer my own questions in the field when it came to, well, I've never seen that before. Now what do I do? Oh, hang on. I'll do it this way because of that. All right, so let's dive into some of the whys and wherefores. I'm sure you guys already have a list of all the kind of stuff that you're traveling with, the minimum requirements for measuring any kind of pool. Make sure you have extras of things like mechanical pencils. You got extra lead. Nothing's worse than showing up and you can't write anything down. I use when I would AB, back when I used to AB, I'd use a digital headset with a little digital recorder in my pocket with a headset I could just talk into. That way I didn't need a helper. I was measuring that pool by myself. I measured every pool by myself, AB or otherwise. But make sure, if you are doing that, which is a great thing, I've tried it on my phone, it didn't work as well as the little digital recorder. Make sure you bring extra batteries. All right? Don't have one of those V8 moments and be like, oh, geez, that's right, Jim told me. So some of these things are kind of weird, like what's an out and down, what are helpers? Most of us know what an extendable pool pole is, but we'll get into those in just a second. The best thing I ever used to remove a liner if I needed to cut the liner to measure, and by the way, if you are going to measure a pool and you need to cut that liner, you either need, if you're the guy who sold the job, you need that contract signed with deposit in hand, or if you're a hired gun measuring for another company or whoever, whatever the situation might be, before you cut, I don't care how old and decrepit that liner is, you sneeze on it and it shatters. You need some kind of proof that says, yes, here in writing, you have permission to cut that liner. God forbid some homeowner, we know the reasons. We've seen it all, okay? Before you commit to cutting a liner, just make sure you have an ironclad reason to be cutting that liner. I don't care how old or disgusting the pool is, because stupid stuff happens. So first and foremost, written permission. But this particular tool, that's a tile cutter. And in a very high-tech manner, it was attached to a pool pole attachment. Now I stick that on the end of my pole and I go down into the hopper and I poke that sucker in and I pull it up towards me and it cuts through it like butter. Trying to stick a regular box cutter on there and reach out and slice down or trying to get it from an angle, no, you just pull it up towards yourself and it works every time. Best thing I ever used. All right, that's worth your price of admission right there. All right, here we go to the digital headset. Like I said, when I do an AB, I do it by myself. And as I go around the pool, how many of you guys chalk out all your AB points and then number them before you go? I'm sorry, guys. That sucks. That sucks. The only points I chalk on a deck before I AB is the shallow break, the hopper break, the length, and if there's liner over step, I'll drop a plumb bob to each step as to where it intersects with the perimeter. I don't mark anything else. I go around that. I bend over as little as I have to. All right? And we'll get into how we can do that, because when you're pulling your A and your B at the same time, all right, make sure you've got two different tape measures, that'll be the next screen. You can go around that pool once. And when you've got a digital headset on, you don't even need a helper writing the numbers down. God forbid I say 15.6 and he thinks I said 16.6. That point's going to be way off. All right? As I talk into this, I will go from point D to point F, which is my shallow break, to my hopper break, and I'll say every measurement twice. A, 21 feet. A, 21 feet. B, 36 feet 7 inches. B, 36 feet 7 inches. Then I'll move to my next point just to make sure. A plane flew overhead, whatever. Any kind of noise number, the lawnmower, something. I want that in there twice. And then what I will do is once I get from point C to point F, it's the next point in my perimeter, I'll stop, I'll plug the headset into the playback side, and I'll just listen real quick to make sure it recorded. I'm not going to listen to the whole thing, and just make sure it started. Each one of those sections, if I might be out doing multiple ABs in one day, each section I will say, measuring for such and such company, job name such and such, starting at point C. And here we go. A, it's 21 feet. A, 21 feet. Now when I get to point F, and I just checked it, yeah, it recorded, I plug it back into the recording side, company such and such, job name such and such, starting at point F. A is 17 feet. A is, that way if I've got multiple files on that recorder by the end of the day, I know exactly which file goes to what pool without crisscrossing my ABs. So speaking of crisscrossing, 2 distinctly different 100-foot tape measures is how you can AB at one time, once around the pool. The beautiful thing about this, if you don't mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 99, 100, 101, if you don't mark those ahead of time, every time you pull A, you can pull it to a nice even number. A, 20 feet. A, 22 feet. A, 23 feet. A, 30 feet. B is going to be whatever number it intersects with, but A, it's less writing, less talking. The engineers at whatever your manufacturer is who's typing all those numbers in, they're going to thank you. Okay? Believe it or not, when they do that all day long, that's going to save them some time. All right? It doesn't have to be. You don't have to just go to some specific point and be like, well, it's 27 feet, 9 3/8 of an inch. No, it's 20 feet. Whatever B intersects it with, that's what it is. All right, make sure you do it right the first time because you're not going back to remeasure. This is for guys who've been doing this enough to where they don't go, oh, whoops, I screwed up my AB. I have to go back and do it. You know, I got to check some more points. My ABs, you'll see my helpers here shortly. My A and my B are movable blocks. When I'm done, I pick up and go because I know I got it. I didn't screw it up. Knock on wood. All right. So this is again for advanced people who know how to measure this stuff already. This is I call it my down and out. This is an out and down, very simple thing to build. It's a transit pole with a plumb line and a plumb bob on the end, Mason line plumb bob. That extends from 5 feet to 10 feet. This is what surveyors use when they're, out surveying. That's the pole that the guy with the looking through the sight at it. This extends to 10 feet. With that tool, I can get all my side and back slopes and the depth at the same time. Super easy. All right. I will when this is extended, I'll lay this out on the deck. I'll drop the plumb bob there to right where the hopper pad meets one of my side slopes. I can see how far out I am. I'm 4 feet, let's say, 3.5 feet, whatever it might be. And then I put my thumb on the string, the Mason line that's running right through there. I put my thumb on this, I stand this up, and I let this swing to wherever it intersects on the pole. I subtract about yay much, because that has a thickness to it. Plus, we've got the coping. We want to measure the depth of the bead receiver. Account for that. That's usually about 4 inches with something like this. This will come swinging to 8 feet 4 inches. I'll lay my 4 inches down and be like, 8 foot depth. Nailed it. I'll do that on the back slope. I'll do that on the other side slope. Depth and out at the same time. And it's 5 feet long. It's super easy. All right, I've seen some of the ones with the chains and the 2 poles connected together and all the different colors of tape. Why? Why? Go to eBay. Boom, there it is. Boom, there it is. Just connect them. And you're done. All right, problem solved. These are my helpers. I don't pay them anything. The government hasn't come after me yet for that. That's just a wooden, far from wooden. That is a cement block that had been poured into just a bucket with a little pole right there in the middle. I ran some handles into it just to make it easier to carry. But that's my A or my B. That little hook right there, this is the guy that holds the stupid end of my tape measure. He weighs all of about, I don't know, 10, 15 pounds, whatever. So it could be 50 pounds, but you know, when you're buff, it's hard to say. But I have two of these. One's my A, one's my B. I'm pulling both at the same time. And when I drop them, it's going to be about 2/3 the length of the pool, right? That's pretty standard. I like to drop them at a very memorable number, 20 feet. Why do I like to do that? Because once I measured a pool via AB with these, and then I went to go check my widths across my shallow break and my length of the pool so we have a good scale. After I moved that first block and started walking away, I went, I didn't measure from A to B. I had to start all over again. The first thing you should always do is measure from A to B and write it down. The last thing you should always do is measure from A to B. Write it down again. All right? Write it on the form, then write it on the drawing. But if you make it an even number, you have a better chance of remembering what it was when you pick up the block and go, oh, it was 20 feet. Okay, no, we're good. All right? That's why I do that. I know some manufacturers or some guys will say in their class, like, it looks like a fake number to the engineers. I don't care what it looks like to them. Do the math, do the ABs, you'll see the scale's right. All right? If that number, by the way, is wrong, if the distance from A to B, you write it down wrong, every point on that whole plot it's wrong. You got to start over. All right? This comes in real handy for doing the diagonals. Everybody here checks their diagonals, right? It's like flossing. We all claim we do it, but we don't actually do it. Checking diagonals on rectangular or basic geometric pools is vital. More important than you realize. Once that rectangular pool is more than 3 inches out of true, that's not a rectangle anymore. What is that, a rhombus? What is that? The liner has to be made differently to fit that pool. Otherwise, you're going to have 2 tight corners and 2 wrinkled corners. Check the diagonals, and all diagonals come from 90-degree hypothetical 90s. Everybody knows what a hypothetical 90 is? Thank you. Okay. If you extend both walls, you might have a 2-foot radius corner, but you extend both straight walls so they intersect at an imaginary point past that radius. That is your hypothetical 90. You can simply lay your pole out and chalk it. But the most accurate diagonal measurements you're ever going to get is from those hypothetical 90s. You go to a 4-foot radius and you just kind of eyeball the middle of that arc. How off do you think you could be? Pretty off. Go to the hypothetical 90. It will be much more accurate. We need that for rectangular pools. We need the diagonals, and they're going to be on your worksheets, your measure forms, for true L's and lazy L's. We assume it's a 90-degree turn. We assume it's a 30-degree angle. I don't know how drunk that builder was the day he put that pool together. Check it. If the angle's not 90 or 30, you might not have a liner that's fitting right. Don't risk it. Take the time. It takes all of 2 minutes for me to do a couple diagonals, all right? Just know, write them down regardless, so the engineers know you actually did it and they've got the confidence to move forward. If it's 3 inches or less, great, not a problem. 3 inches or more, all right, we got to tweak it, all right? Final will stretch, but there's only so much we're going to ask of it. So, this might not look like a nightmare scenario. This pool took me 4 hours to measure. This is a fiberglass conversion. My rule of thumb is when I have dealers ask me, so what should I do? I say, hey, and not to be sexist, but bring home the girl that you brought to the dance. If it's a cement pool, keep it cement. If it's fiberglass, keep it fiberglass. But some people heard from their neighbor that putting a liner in a pool is a great idea, cement or otherwise. Okay. Prior to advanced, the modern measuring techniques, we had to do this the old-fashioned way. And yeah, wow, that sucked, not gonna lie. So this is all like hand-formed fiberglass steps, so we'll get into what that entailed. We've got walls leaning back here. We've got a shallow break that is completely curved. We've got a bowl bottom. We've got a very slight safety ledge, but it's enough that I need to make a note of it. And any safety ledge that's more than 3 inches, you need to make sure your engineers know. Your design team needs to know that. They've got to allow for extra material. Otherwise, we're going to end up with Florida wall seams in the wrong place. So I just had to sharpen my pencil and just get into it. And wow. So bowl bottoms, oh man. Thank God I had consistent rings of where the water used to be sitting. Even there's some up here. There was even one further up. Without that, I would have had to completely make this up as I went along. I would have had to hire somebody with a laser. I would have had to do something else. But when you have a bowl bottom with those concentric, scum lines, for lack of a better term, those are some of the points that you're going to be measuring to. This is one of those occasions where I would actually put some specific A-B points around the, this pool did get A-B'd. I put some extra specific points, couple on the side of the hopper here. I think probably like one here and one here. Probably, I would have had my H out here for my length anyway, because I wanted to get extra out and down measurements with my out and down. So I would run the distance out with my plumb line to the edge of that ring. I'd do another one to the edge of that ring and another one to the edge of that ring. And I would record all of those, the out and the down. So the engineers now know how much of a curvature there is to that bowl. At least they have an idea, something to work with. Luckily, and this is something I learned being on the manufacturing side, a liner is obviously shrunk from the, you give it, and please, you all give us exact dimensions, right?
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, at least this guy does. The engineers who design your liners, they know what time of year it is. They know where you are located. This is hopefully not their first day on the job. Don't pre-shrink your measurements because it's August. They know what's going on. There is a method to their madness. Give exact measurements, let the engineer make the call, trust the process. When they make the liner, the majority of the shrink is engineered into the hopper. If it's a flat, square hopper pad, they will actually shrink the hopper pad, the dimensions, as well as the depth. So that liner now hangs like a hammock in your hopper. You've all seen it. Then you fire up your vacuum, or vacuums, depending on the complexity of the pool, and it pulls it right in, like butter, like it was painted on. That's the idea. So I'm trying to give them an idea of how much they need to hammockize, that's a great word, right? How much they need to hammockize that hopper, all right? It just gets better. So as you can see, every rule of thumb here, anytime you're showing depth from a bird's eye view drawing, circle it. That's just standard. That shows what you're talking about is depth. All right, you can use that for no matter how complex or simple the drawing is. I don't normally have to give all these depths. Oh my God. And think of the time it took to get all those depths. And I'm talking about them from this point and that point and this other point. I've got outs to this point and I've got outs to that point. Damn, talking about the shallow break and the depths at all the different points. Having to run a plumb line across and then drop a plumb line down at this point. I'm essentially building like a grid over the pool and dropping plumb lines down from certain points and getting those depths.
Do you have any wrinkles in that line?
We'll get to that. I like you. And don't forget to measure from A to B. Why is B first and A second? That seems kind of backwards, right? Again, if we all do things the same way every time, then we're all talking the same language. Typically, when you're talking about a certain aspect of the pool, I'm talking about a bench for a step, I'm talking about the bather view. I'm standing in the pool looking at the steps, I'm talking about a left bench bather view. If I'm standing up on the deck and looking at those steps, that's now a right bench. Your engineers, your design team needs to know what you're talking about. So in this case, same rule of thumb applies. My A and B are a bather view. I'm in the pool looking out to my A and B points. How do we read? Left to right. So if I had put my A and B up top here, it would be A and B, and it would look a little bit more like it was correct. This looks incorrect, but it's actually not. Simple little rules of thumb that I just learned from that's what my engineers are looking for. If we all do it the same way every time, we're less likely to have errors. If you switch A and B, your liner will now be a mirror image of itself. Depending on the shape of the pool, it might fit, but if it's an L, not going to fit. All right? So don't screw those up. If you do it the same way every time, your likelihood of screwing it up is greatly diminished. Bather view, A to the left, B to the right. All right? We are going to get to the final product. But yeah, oh my God, this was so insane. This curved shallow break, okay? These are all the distances from the E, I did like an imaginary shallow break and then had to measure out and down from where that true plumb line was to the perceived shallow break. It's not even a real shallow break because it was so rounded, it was so smooth. This is one of the reasons why we don't do liners in cement pools, because there usually are not flat planes coming together making specific gutter lines that we know we've measured accurately to. Everything is rounded, everything is bowled out, everything's a huge sweeping cove. What do I measure to? Kind of the middle, and you take a lot of photos and you make it clear that, like, this is what I measured to, but let's cross our fingers. This is one of the reasons why we do not recommend typically doing this kind of conversion. Now, luckily, we can. The steps was a huge undertaking. Hand-formed fiberglass. If this was cement, it'd be the same story. And this is during COVID. We saw a lot of cement steps getting formed and filled because steel prices got out of control, lead times got out of control. So we started seeing all these measurements coming in that were totally wonkified. From one side of the step to the other, they could have been an inch different. On a pool, a 20 by 40, an inch different, who cares? It's vinyl, it's gonna stretch. On a step, when I've only got 7 inches on my top riser, an inch is like a mile. All right, on a cold day, that 27 mil, that doesn't want to go up in that receiver if that measurement's not right. I gave the engineers way more information than they might have needed, but I needed to make sure they knew exactly what was going on. I'm trying to describe to them something that I saw with my own eyes mathematically, something that they have never seen. That's what's happening here. That's what these numbers do. And just so everybody, again, is on the same page, take plenty of pictures, email them, text them. They usually come through looking great. When you take a great looking video and you send that through, how do you think it looks on our end? Looks like garbage. The resolution gets so dumbed down to be able to send it, it's useless. Take pictures. Take more pictures than you think you might need, because going back, let's not do that. Too much is never enough. That's always been my motto. And that's kind of what I did here, but I didn't want to go back to this pool. Oh my God, no. As soon as I walked away from this, I ran. All right, but I had to consider everything. Measurements at the ends, measurements in the middles, measurements about 1/3 and 2, man, oh man. But that's how off everything was. 8 inches, 8 3/4 inches. They were all over the place. Different wall heights from one side to the other. What the engineers did as far as how they designed it, they're not going to cut the liner to where it's doing this on the steps. They're going to find a common ground and go from there. Again, we know the vinyl is going to stretch to a certain extent. I just wanted to make sure they knew what common ground to find. That's up to them. I'm not the engineer. If you're not a Rembrandt or a Picasso or a Michelangelo, don't draw it. Take a picture of it. There's apps you can get on your phone. You can do this on your computer. Draw the lines and put the numbers in there. All right? Not everybody's going to draw some great-looking pools. I was training a new dealer many years ago on A-B measuring a pool up in Stony Point, New York. And the first night, I kind of did it, and he went with me. The second night, I was like, okay, now it's your turn. Draw the pool. He drew the pool and showed it to me, and I'm like, did you just draw that pool? Because it looked nothing like it. I get it. You're not all going to be, Picassos. But this is the workaround. All right? If it's crazy complex and you're not feeling like drawing it, go for it. This happens to be a common place in California where they have these cement pools with the walls leaning back and these hand-formed steps, and then they chuck a liner in there. I'm like, come on, California. Why are you doing this to me? All right? But this is the workaround. And again, check your diagonals going to what I talked about before, the hypothetical 90. All right? When you're measuring steps, let's go back to that picture. If that was a radius corner, how am I supposed to get my A measurement there? How am I supposed to get that 24 inches if that's got a radius right there? I have to take that back to a hypothetical 90, which means I have to do it now up on the deck. I can drop a plumb line right there. I'll actually use a pencil instead of chalk because I know I need to be hyper accurate, right? Like 1/8 inch accuracy right here, especially this area right here. If that's not right, that liner's not going to fit well. And that's where I've got no water weight to force it in. I got to be spot on. So I will drop plumb line here. I'll drop a plumb line here. I will find my hypothetical 90, extending my straight walls, and I will measure from here to wherever that mark is on this side and there to the mark on that side. I'll do that for all the steps because they all need to go back to that hypothetical 90. That will be your most accurate way to measure those corner steps. And make sure your engineers know you went to you did it, hey, I studied, okay? I did it right, I went to the hypothetical 90, all right? Checking those diagonals every time. I can't tell you how many liners we've seen that just didn't fit right because the pool was not true. And nobody told the engineers. They designed it like it was a rectangle. This is another great slide to take a picture of, but again, anything that you guys don't get, you can always reach out to me and I'll send it to you. But check, these are all the dotted lines here are the diagonals. This is already on the worksheets. I think any manufacturer is going to have diagonal measurements that they need for an L or a lazy L, true L. I can't tell you how many come in and those boxes are empty. If you're walking out of the backyard and you've got empty boxes on your measure form, that should be a major red flag. You're going to be coming back. You should just know you're going to be coming back. And here's the thing that I do. If there's a section, like say I'm looking at a page where there's like, well, this is the Roman worksheet and this is the Grecian worksheet on the same page, I'll fill out the part that I need and I'll put a big X through any part that I don't need so my engineers know I did not forget something. That boosts their confidence, less likely for something to get put on hold, and then I got to explain it, and then, you know the process. All right, your customer's waiting. When's that liner coming in? Don't make them wait any longer than they have to. All right, so this is, there's some stuff that the diagonals get pretty crazy, but again, if you didn't build that pool, you don't know how plumb and true and square that pool is, or not. So to answer your question, boom, like glass. Yeah. But that was a 4-hour commitment to getting every measurement I could possibly muster to make sure my engineers knew what I was looking at because they weren't there. All right. This was one of our dealers, Thomas Flint Landscaping. Shout out to them. They do some great work. And their guys, they nailed it. The homeowner was over the moon. All right. Some of the pitfalls that we need to watch out for when we are in that pool measuring, and of course when we're in the pool, this is easy. The dreaded convex slopes. Have any of you guys ever measured a super simple pool, 1632 rectangle? Boom, 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 measurements done. A week later, the liner is showing up, hopefully a week later, if you're a Kadant dealer it is. You're putting that liner in, everything's looking good, you get down to the deep end, you're looking good, you fire up the vacuum. Why do I have these wrinkles in the gutter lines in the hopper? I can't get rid of them. I measured the pool, everything fits great, but I can't chase them anywhere. You probably have convex side and or back slopes. When you measure the pool, we know what the perimeter is of the hopper at the bottom of the wall. We know what the perimeter is of the hopper at the hopper pad. We assume from here to here is a constant. So the perimeter remains equivocally the same, whatever the terminology would be. When this becomes convex, that perimeter becomes smaller, and anytime the shell of the pool is smaller than the liner, what do you get? Wrinkles. So if you have nice flat slopes or even concave, even if they're curved, in, or not coming into the pool, but kind of curving out from the pool, the liner will stretch in. But once they bulge up, where you're going to find is where they meet, where those two planes meet in the gutter line, is where those wrinkles are going to rear their ugly head. Where you can chase them to depends on how bulged that is. Depends on how much the liner was short. There's a lot of factors there. If that's a sand bottom, and this has happened to me, as I'm working, it's hot, the sand is sloughing down, I'm troweling it back up, didn't quite get it true enough, especially in the gutter line, ran the liner like, oh, great, there's wrinkles. All right, I haven't committed yet. I fired up my vacuum and I saw them. I'm still able to pull that liner back, fix that sand, do it again, now it works. All right, don't overcommit. Don't assume the water is going to just chase your wrinkles away. So there are some wrinkles that will, yes, go away with water, but probably on the floor, they're probably just going to get trapped. All right? So watch out for this. If you're in the pool, and this is what it looks like, by the way. I know it's hard to see in the shadows, but that's the gutter line on the deep end corner. And that's where those wrinkles showed up on just a basic rectangular pool. Like, it's the most simple thing to measure. How did that happen? We didn't know that these slopes were convex. When the pool's empty, that's easy to see. You can sense that. When the pool's full, what do? Grab that pool pole, extend it, use the handle end, not the business end, and slide it down that side slope, slide it down that back slope. See if you get a sense for any kind of curvature coming out. Like I said, going in, we don't care, that's fine, it'll stretch in. But any curvature coming out, if you feel that not going straight down, make a note. Let the engineers know, I believe I have convex slopes. The pool was full, so I was not able to get the variance for it, but be aware. They'll probably put some extra shrink in there to avoid the issue. If the pool is empty, we know what we can do, though, is get, not the variance, the deflection, all right? The out and down, when you extend that, that's nice and straight. It's fiberglass, it's not curving, it's keeping nice and level. You can lay that on this convex slope to where it's kind of teetering evenly from top and bottom. The distance they need is that number right there. That's how much the deflection is. All right, when you split it from top to bottom, it should be the same number. Let your design team know this is how much deflection I've got going on. All right, they can then accommodate. Yes?
Why not just take a center point?
That is something you could do too, but we don't know if this hump is an even arc. Is it fatter at the bottom? Is it more like where is the peak of the hump? Is it in the middle? Is it down here? Chances are, if this was a sand bottom and all the sand sloughed down and we had to kind of trowel it back up, we probably have extra here, but maybe not so much here. With the deflection, we can ascertain that a bit more. But as long as you let us know there's something going on, if you have a feel for where it might be, definitely note that. More information is better than less. All right? If this is a vermiculite bottom and it's solid, let's hope you found that hump before we got the liner in, because you don't want to be breaking up that vermiculite just to get that liner in that day. All right? But it's one of the pitfalls that rears its ugly head from time to time. Just keep it on your radar. All right? How are we doing on time? We're not racing. Good. All right. So we get to the fun and exciting part of modern measuring devices. The future is here. All that stuff we just talked about could actually be very much a thing of the past if we embrace the technology that's available to us now. For those of us that are still kind of doing it the old-fashioned way, still pulling the tape measure, hopefully reading the smart end and not the stupid end, I'm usually not, I try avoid being brand specific, but this particular application, which is called Pool Measure Pro, it is free to all of you, and pretty much every manufacturer of liners and safety covers is on that app. So it's neutral territory. The nice thing about this tool, whether you get your quotes or whether you get your orders through, when you do this, you can submit it to whoever you work with. The nice thing about this is as you're in the field, if you're unsure, if you're not confident that your ABs are good, that you might screw it up, you can enter them there in the field instead of taking that digital recorder back to your office and listening to them then when you're soaking up some air conditioning. You can plot it out right there on your phone, and you'll know if every spot is where it's supposed to be before you leave. Yes?
I've seen one of those apps before, and it had a function where you could actually talk into it. And
Yeah.
read. Does that one do that?
That might be Pool Measure Pro. I'm not super steeped in this. I mean, we're on it, so I'd let my dealers know, but this came out after I was out of the field, of course. It's what sucks about being old. All the new toys come out. But yeah, I have heard about that, and that might actually be on this as well. I'm not sure. The thing about A/B measuring, there's a lot of fear I see from the younger guys about doing liners for freeform pool, even doing covers. Dude, we got like a foot of wiggle room on each side if we're doing a cover. What are we worried about? All right? They're worried about screwing up an A/B. Oh, there's so many points you have to measure to. Yeah. And what are you doing each time you measure to that point? You're pulling a tape measure and you're reading the number. That doesn't change. You're just doing it more. Why is that so hard? If you measure the length and the width and you write down 15 feet instead of 16 feet on a 1632, 50% of your perimeter measurements are wrong. You think that liner's going to fit? Not a chance in hell. If I've got 40 points here and 4 of them are wrong, only 10% of my measurements are inaccurate. And we have some checks and balances with an AB because we're looking to build what looks like a pool. If I've got 1 point that's in the neighbor's yard, 1 point that's down the street, and 1 point that's in the other atmosphere, the outer stratosphere, the engineers are going to know that pool ain't shaped like that. Is that a vital point? No, it's not. I can delete that and we can keep going. Is it supposed to be the one where it's the end of the step? Okay, now we have an issue. You might need to go back. All right. Hopefully, if you're in an advanced measuring class, you're probably not afraid of ABing, but we can dispel any fears. Yes, Anton.
Okay, Jim, Pool Measure Pro does have
The voice?
the voice.
There you go.
It'll also hook up to a Bluetooth microphone.
Okay, that is awesome. This app will not measure for you. It doesn't shoot a laser out and tell you how. No, this is just record. You type it in. You tell it what to do. It just records it for you. It's a nice feature. It's free. Okay, us manufacturers, we pay to be on it. It's free to you guys, so don't be afraid to use it. All right, but getting into how to make your life easier, there are some options out there from different manufacturers. I'm only going to cover the basic 4, and some manufacturers might do the same as another one does, but at least you'll understand the differences, the ups and downs, the whatevers of each option that's available to you. Advanced photo measuring. So this is taking a series of photos from all these different angles around the pool. It doesn't have to be a rectangle. It could be any shape. Doesn't matter. We're just going around the pool at various elevations, hence the ladder. And you're doing it with just a digital camera. They ask you not to use your phone because there is some fisheye issue with the phone. A true camera will just take the straight up photo. And that is vital for the technology needed to interpolate all this information. The trick with this is, because you're taking a photo from so far away and from up high on the ladder and down low at the deck, it's a little time consuming, but things that need to be noted need to be marked. So we're using several tape measures, several different numbered markers, several different cones. You can see, it's hard to see in this slide, but something like this, like a cave, we've got to drop all those cones in there and like kind of up here on the rocks. There's some nuance to it. It can be quick and simple. It can also be time consuming depending on the complexity of the pool. Somebody swam in there and placed those cones. I hope that wasn't closing season and already October. All right, because been there, done that. I know it sucks. All right, I've never done this, but I interviewed dealers who have, and I did get one story of, it was a new construction. We were doing the photo measuring. I had the ladder, but there was no deck around the pool yet. So I'm putting the ladder on uneven ground, and sure enough, what do you think happened? Down they went. I'm sure OSHA was not real happy about that. So there's a slight hazard involved, perhaps, but let's not get too carried away with it. So that's photo measuring. I'm sure you've all heard about the lasers. Cade Manufacturing had the Kaiser last year as a little bit of a joke. People actually email me like, Jim, what's up with the Kaiser? I'm like, it's a joke. It's okay. All right. There's a couple options here. There is the option to get in with a particular manufacturer where you buy the laser LiDAR system from them, and then you pay a fee to upload, use the service. It's basically the same or similar principle as owning your own laser, but the price tag's like 20 grand, just to put that out there. This is what we get. This is what the engineering team gets when we laser measure anything. This is an oval with quote unquote corner steps. So normally we'd A/B that and drop lines down to it. But again, a very, very rounded hopper, very rounded shallow break, slight safety ledge, but so rounded, what are we measuring to? So it's cement floor, but steel wall. Hand-formed cement steps. See this curvature here? Cutting in. Like, I don't want to measure that. I'll be there all damn day. All right. Measuring this pool with this laser still took a while. This one, my dealer told me this was like a 2-hour job. One of the problems he had was trying to put that red laser dot out there on a sunny day, and he's like, couldn't see it. So he had to come up with some reflective markers here and there. So yes, it works well. Is it hyperactive? Hyper accurate? Yes. Is it good for covers and liners? Yes. All right. But one of the nuances to it is the engineering team that you're working with, whoever your manufacturer is. If you're purchasing it from a manufacturer, they probably have this locked down. But this shotgun blast of points now has to be interpolated into a pool. And again, with interviewing dealers, I have heard stories of misinterpolation of those points, and the liner ending up being the depth was too much. We had wrinkles. So things to be aware of in that regard. Drone measuring. This is like some of the newest hotness coming out now. This particular drone photo measuring is taking a single photo of the pool from a high altitude. Just one shot is all you need. There is some prep work you'll need to do by laying some fiducial markers. And people, Jim, what the hell? Fiducial? What? When you A and B are your fiducial markers. They are set. They don't change. So your A, B, C, and D are your ABs of this technique. You'll lay these markers down around the pool, roughly in that sort of configuration. Need the measurements between them in all 6 directions. This is for covers, so if it's an anchor match due to the altitude the drone has to go up to, you need to mark all the anchors so they're clearly visible in that one photo. Otherwise, you're going back to take the one photo again. One of the downsides of this can be quick. This can be super quick. One of the downsides, though, is if this pool has a raised spa right there, I have to place these fiducial markers on that raised spa, get all 6 of those measurements again, fly back up and take another photo with the fiducial markers there. If there's another feature I need to be aware of, those fiducial markers need to be moved to that elevation, and we got to do it again. So each elevation needs this done. So it can be quick, or it could be not so quick. But it's one photo. That's pretty cool. And the drones are not crazy expensive. They're roughly $700. All right. But we got to make sure we bring all the rest of this stuff. This has an issue with anything with an overhang. Because we're going up and taking one photo, if you've got a waterfall that's sticking out into the pool, you're not seeing what's under that. That still has to be measured the old-fashioned way. If you've got a slide and you're measuring this for a cover, this isn't for liners, you need to know where those slide legs are, hence these yardsticks that you're laying out. All right? Again, marking all the anchors because the altitude is high up enough that you might not see each anchor. We've got to clearly mark it. So there is some prep work with this. Excuse me. Lastly, we have aerial 3D imaging, which is again done with a drone. It's not one picture. It's more like 300 pictures. But with modern drones, you can set them to take a high-resolution photo every 2 seconds while you're flying around a prescribed flight path around the perimeter of the pool, down into the pool, you name it. What this will do is measure any pool, no matter the complexity. There's even an overhang right here. We still need to see those rocks under that overhang. You simply fly the drone under it and get images of it. The only thing you need to bring with you besides the drone is one tape measure. All you need is 25 feet pulled out, laid next to the pool, like along this side here, simply for scale. You don't even need to know how to read a tape measure because you're not the one reading it. The engineers who get this information and build the 3D model and then the wire frame from it, they're the ones reading the tape measure. So you can basically send the dumbest guy on your crew out to measure pools for you now, as long as he knows how to pull out a tape measure and fly a drone. All right? The flight path is fairly prescribed, is what you're going to do, as long as the drone is set to take those photos every 2 minutes. by the time you're done, and literally 5, 10 minutes tops. 5 minutes for a basic pool, 10 for something a bit more complex, and you are walking out of the backyard with more than enough data that is needed to actually make a liner or a safety cover. This is the 3D model that is built from it. This is an example of the wire frame that's pulled from it, and then a cover is made to go right in there. Nothing was measured at all. How do all 4 of these compare when putting them all side by side? There's different price ranges. Some do liners and covers, some only do covers. As far as the difficulty, that is subjective. So that's why we put subjective difficulty. I'm trying to be fair here, trying to be neutral. But this is all based on dealers around the country that I've spoken to that have done all of these. This is the one I'm steeped in. That's Caden does this. I know about that. These other ones I had to talk to other people about and find out how good or how not so good they were. All right. There are some of my buddies run like measuring services, and they use some lasers that are like $450, not $20,000. And I said, well, does that work? He's like, well, yeah, I can do like a couple things with it, but for the most part, I'm not doing much with that. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't missing something there. All right. But I put this difficulty here because of the falling off the ladder issue that I heard about. That kind of hurt. That's kind of hard. All right. But this is the basic breakdown of what your options are. How much time you're willing to spend, how much money you're willing to spend. Do you need it for a liner? Do you need it for a cover? Whether it's laser measuring or aerial 3D imaging, if it's for a liner, the pool needs to be empty. There is no technology currently available to where, yeah, the pool's full, we'll just drop this sonar device in there and beep, 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 bing, we got it. No, we're not there yet. Soon, maybe. Water out, liner out, because as soon as that water's out, that liner's gonna what? It's gonna shrink. We need to see the shell of the pool. I know that not every pool can be left empty for a week. Could be hurricane season, could be sand bottom, could be Long Island. Frank knows. All right? Can't leave that pool empty that long. Okay. Well, let's take a look at what we got. Is it a basic pool with fiberglass steps that I don't need to measure? Okay. Just like we were A-Bing, let me chalk mark the shallow break. Let me chalk mark the hopper pad on the deck. Fly, in this case, the drone around for five minutes for that one. We're going to get those in the scans. All I need is the depth in the shallow end and the depth in the deep end. Those are the only 2 old school measurements we need to get. If you do have liner over step, you got 2 options. You can measure them the old-fashioned way and include them with a drone measurement. Or if you're worried about groundwater, you're worried about something else, drain the pool down to the hopper, remove the liner in the shallow end, expose that liner over step, especially if it's fancy free-form sun ledge curved, this, that, and the other thing. Fly the drone all around it, collect all that information, and just get the depth in the deep end and be sure to mark the hopper pad. So there's workarounds for situations where for some reason you don't want to empty that pool. In the grand scheme of things, you should be getting your liners back in about a week. Keep that in mind. Measure the pool, a week later you're putting it back in. Can it sit empty for a week? Not if it's a wooden wall pool, clearly, but most of them probably could. All right, any questions on this before we move on to the bonus round? Frank, I nailed that in an hour, and that didn't feel rushed. I don't know why that was so rushed on Tech Tuesday.
Too much coffee.
Way too much coffee. Yes?
Yeah, the flight path for a drone, is it a back and forth path that you set, or?
For drone photography, it's straight up from the middle of the pool to where you have enough altitude where you can see the pool and the deck all around it for one photo. For aerial 3D imaging, you're only flying the drone at about eye level, pretty much the perimeter of the pool, and then if we're a liner, we're going to go down actually into the pool and fly it around. Some of the more high, for those of you who are not steeped in flying drones and like, I'm going to crash into something, the drones that are coming in around that $700 price range are where the bells and whistles start to kick in, meaning obstacle avoidance. So if you're flying and there's a tree branch there, it will avoid it. It won't let you fly into it. There are things that it'll do for you because we're not all drone flyers. According to the letter of the law, if you are flying a drone for commercial purposes, this might be considered commercial purposes, you should be FAA certified. There is a test you can take online. It's a course and then a test, and I'm sure there's a fee, but it's nothing absorbent. It takes, I think, all of about 10 hours. Our engineering team did it, and they're like, yeah, that was easy. Where that's going to come into play, I mean, if you're in the backyard and you're only flying the drone at eye level, who knows? Like, nobody knows. Where it will come into play is the more high-end drones will have something called geofencing. If you are within so many miles of an airport or a prison or an Air Force base, something secure, you will not be able to fire up that drone and let it fly. It'll auto shut down. But if you are FAA certified, you pass the test, there are websites you can go to request a temporary reprieve on the geofence, and they'll be, okay, you have a 2-hour window, go. All right, so there's always a workaround. We've yet to hit a wall with, at least with this type of measuring. And I call it measuring, but it's not, like the pin says, it's measuring without measuring. We only need the tape measure for scale, and that's it. All right, the future's here, guys. Where was all of this when I was doing this stuff, man? God, with that 4-hour pool, I could have done any one of these and saved myself a lot of time, a lot of headache. All right, it just wasn't available back then. So we'll be available for more questions after the class, but I think we've hit our bonus round. There should be like a ding. How to calculate square footage and volume. This is the really exciting, math-heavy part of the class. I'm sure everybody's like riveted at this point. This is going to apply for those who do plaster, those who paint, those who refinish fiberglass, but anybody who does any kind of chemical dosing, we've got to get into how to figure out volume. That needs to be known. If you're getting water delivered, how many tankers do I get? You know, if the homeowner's asking, like, well, we're going to fill it with our water, but they charge us, this much. You know how much that's going to cost. Let me do some quick numbers. I'll let you know. All right. Need my glasses so I can see this one up close. Square footage of a rectangle, super simple, length and width. A 20 by 40 is 800 square feet. That's the surface area of the water, not the pool, just the water. All right. Again, a lot of these slides are pretty math heavy. So if this stuff applies to you, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll email you any slide you need. Okay, and you can keep it handy. I figured out for a rectangle, a circle. Now we're getting into pi. We know it's pi 3.14, blah 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 blah. But there's always pi r squared and 2 pi r, that sort of stuff. But anytime we're working with the radius, remember the radius is half of the diameter. So on a 24 round, the radius is 12 feet. So 2 pi r squared is going to be pi times 12 times 12. So this is 435 square feet. This is pretty basic, but now we're going to get into some more complex things that we usually see out in the field. Now we've got an oval. Basically, if we cut the middle section of the pool out and put these two halves together, we have a circle. We just learned how to do the square footage of that, and we already know how to do length and width of a square. Break it up into 2 different pieces. Don't try to tackle it all at once. It's too much. Simplify it and then go from there. So you have multiple equations, but when you add them together, you've got 521 total square feet of surface area on the water. If you're installing solar panels, you need to know that number. 80% of your surface area needs to be up on the roof or the lean-to or whatever it is with your solar collectors to heat that water effectively. All right? Now the fun begins. Again, it doesn't matter how complex the pool is, just break it down into the most basic shapes that you can. Is it going to be uber accurate? No. Is it going to be close enough for our purposes? Darn tootin'. My daughter says that. All right? So this is, break each piece down, do the math for each piece, and then add them together to get your, in this case, surface area. Again, for solar panels, that's something that we're going to need to know. Now getting into actual surface area of the shell of the pool, now we need to get 3-dimensional. Again, we're breaking it down to where I've got 4 different pieces of the pool. I've got one long wall, the other long wall, the deep end wall, the shallow end wall, and I'm working with average depths. If we have 3.5 feet in the shallow end and 8 feet in the deep end, on average, that's 5 3/4 feet. All right? We could break this down further and do separate sections, but now we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, and that's, I've never needed to do that. All right? Now we're talking down to like the gallon, not even 100 gallons here. All right, break it all down piece by piece, add it all up when it's all done. So the surface area of this pool, if I was going to paint this pool, is 1,490 square feet, 1,500 square feet. Now I know how much paint to buy. Now I know how much plaster to get. When you're getting plaster and you come up short and your batch numbers don't match, you may have a problem. It could be the same color, but if that's a different batch number, you may have a problem. So preparedness is next to godliness when it comes to doing this kind of work. Same kind of applies to the type of paint that you've got to mix. If you're doing any custom colors, forget it. Fiberglass can be the same situation. Don't show up short-handed, but don't show up with more than you're ever going to need. Not sure when this would apply. This would be like an above-ground pool, trying to figure out the surface area of that. Maybe I got to foam the whole thing. I don't know. Again, we break it down into two pieces. The floor, easy to do, 2 pi r, and the wall. The wall we know is one continuous piece. Just get the height and the perimeter, and there's an equation here for the perimeter, the circumference, 2 pi r. And we can add the two of those together to total up what is the surface area of that round pool. This could be an in-ground pool. Who knows? Rare, but they do exist. Same thing once again. Same principle. We've got these two halves make a circle. That makes a square. We can figure out the volume. We can figure out the entire surface area of the pool. In this case, we're doing the perimeter, 78 feet. All right, we know the circumference of the circle. We know those distances when we cut out the middle, 78 feet. All right. Volume. Water is pretty much, it's like 7.48, I think, is the actual number of gallons per cubic foot. 7.5 is pretty much what we all use when we're calculating stuff. But the volume of a rectangle, well, now again, we're going with length times width times average depth. We're doing all these different calculations separately and then adding it all together. And be sure to subtract 6 inches on your depth, because we know the water level does not go up to the bead receiver or the coping or whatever the case might be. It's almost always 6 inches down. So when you're trying to get in that 6 inches on a large pool can mean a lot of gallons. All right? So account for that 6-inch variance right there. Again, we're working with an average depth here, which is, for most cases, good enough. All right? Same can apply for a round pool. Again, this is more for like above ground water delivery, let's say. Average depth of 4 feet, subtracting the 6 inches there. Each wall height's going to be different. And don't forget that a lot of these above ground pools are slightly buried. So if you measure the outside of the wall, you might not get the actual depth. You got to go in the pool to get the true depth. All right. What else could we possibly need to know? How much does that pool weigh? Well, if I'm a hot tub guy and I'm delivering this hot tub on a deck, what is this going to weigh when it's full, and can that deck hold it? Am I building a pool on the roof of a hotel? Okay, there's a lot to know here. This is rare, but we do need to know. So the weight of water is 8.3 pounds per gallon. I used to actually bring water jugs with me at work so I could work out while I was working. That's how crazy I was. All right, 8.35 gallons. So if we go through the same process we did before, figuring out the volume, figuring out 7.5 gallons per cubic foot, and then get our gallonage and multiply that by 8.35, a 25 by 50 pool weighs just over 400,000 pounds. Where can we put that? Rare that we need to know that, but these are the equations that you never know you might encounter at some point. And again, if these slides, I know there's a lot going on here, and it's a Wednesday morning. We were up late last night. All right, if you need this, reach out to me, and I'll shoot it over to you in an email. All right. And speaking of, there's that contact info once again. Don't hesitate to use it. Reach out to me, or if you have a problem, you talk to Ken Harris in the back. He'll take care of you. All right. Whether you buy products from me at Kadon, whether you buy products from Ken at Merlin, whether you buy products from whoever, anywhere, I don't care. If you need my advice, if you have a question, reach out to me. Texting is great, AKA pool. It's hard to forget that. Text me anytime. I'll try and get you an answer as quick as I can. Call me, email me, whatever the case might be. Questions before we get to the show floor? We get a lot of questions about the aerial 3D imaging, so I'm open to answering. Those I can answer because I know that very well. Yes?
Do y'all provide the drones, or
We would give you a list of the models that we recommend, because there is a base model, I think around $350, but it doesn't have the bells and whistles like the obstacle avoidance. You use the phone as the screen. I mean, it works, it does the job, but if you're going to be doing this a lot, you might want to go with the bells and whistles because it's just going to make your life easier. There's like a $350, there's like a $700 model, there's like a $1,000 model. You want some extra batteries because you're going to be out all day, there's a $1,200 version. We give you the list, you decide. Each one of those items on that list will do what we need it to do, and then we will send you the instructions. We also have our engineering team is available for like virtual walking you through the first time you do it, so you walk out of that backyard with confidence that you got everything. You go back to the office, upload all the images, done. A week later, you have a liner. All right? Anything else? Man, I must be a really good teacher. You guys got like all of it, right? Just nailed it. Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. Oh, hang on, I got to do the NESPA slide. I got to pay the bills here. There you go. There is a survey. You can scan the QR code and you can tell everybody how great I am, and Pat will appreciate that. But I thank you all for coming out and sitting through this. You've been a great audience. Hope to see you on the show floor. Thank you. Yo.